Hello there, I'm Begalius. Good evening. We're sitting down today with a glass of whiskey on the rocks. Today it's a 12-year singleton. It was absolutely delicious, quite smoky and smooth, very smooth. Taste that one, very good. So I'd recommend the singleton, but that's not what I want to talk about tonight. What I want to talk about with you tonight is critics, dude. And throughout my time on this channel, I have spoken extensively about critic aggregation websites and services. But there's one that I've never spoken about. So I've spoken about IMDb. I've spoken about Metacritic. I've spoken about Pitchfork. All of these, review services. And I understand Pitchfork isn't an aggregation one. But the one that I haven't spoken about is Rotten Tomatoes. I hate Rotten Tomatoes. I cannot stand Rotten Tomatoes. The service itself drives me nuts. I hate the service itself, and I hate what it's done to the internet. And I'll explain that to you now. So the reason I don't like Rotten Tomatoes is somehow, despite the fact that, this really should be public knowledge, but I'm not blaming the public for not knowing, because I think they keep it quite under wraps. Given how important it is to the service, I think a lot of people don't actually understand how Rotten Tomatoes works. So we see a lot of posts that are like, oh my god, look, this movie got like 70, but this one got 50. Dude, what the hell, man? You're telling me that this is 20% better than this? You're crazy. The critics don't know what they're talking about. Okay, to those people, here's how Rotten Tomatoes works. It doesn't take scores from critics and aggregate that into one big score. It doesn't do that. Whereas a website like Metacritic would say, okay, we have a 70, a 30, and a 30. Let's figure out what the average there would be, and let's give that the score. No. That's not how it works on Rotten Tomatoes. On Rotten Tomatoes, basically, if a critic liked a film, be it that they would give it either 50% or more, then it gets 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Whereas if they dislike the film, in the opinion of Rotten Tomatoes, which is 50%, less than 50%, then that would be 0%, and that is then all stacked up and added up into a big fat score. And that's where you get such hyperbolic scores, these like huge, 100% or like 90% and stuff like that, because it's all whether they did or didn't like it. Now, a lot of people would say, okay, well, look, Big Alias, stop being a beta cuck, right? Get over it. This is better because either you like the film or you don't. Firstly, I'm not a fan of that mentality. I'm not a fan of the either you like it or you don't mentality. But secondly, and my big issue with that is, even if that argument is correct, even if we're to assume, okay, yeah, critics either like a film or they don't. That's how criticism works. They either like it or they don't, which is a dogmatic and baseline. But yeah, maybe they either do or they don't. Even if that's the case, why then do Rotten Tomatoes have to have an aggregate score? Why does it have to be an aggregate score? Because the whole process is based off of this like binary 100 or 0 process leading up to it. It's all like, oh, they either like it or they dislike it, and that's 50 or 100, and it's all binary up until they reach the point where it's an aggregate and they're like, and now it's going to be a percentage. It's going from like or dislike, and I think we'll call it a percentage now. And it just doesn't gel. It doesn't match. It doesn't work. And it leads to these ridiculous scores. And that's why it always looks so ridiculous. So why do they do it? Well, this is the reason that I hate what it's done to the internet. Because of course they're going to do it. Because I'm talking about it now. Because every post you see online from Rotten Tomatoes is about how crazy hyperbolic a score is. About how, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but earlier I saw a screenshot saying that the sequel to the horror Winnie the Pooh film has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Wouldn't be talking about it if it didn't. Wouldn't be bringing it up. And that's the advantage of Rotten Tomatoes, and that's why it's so pervasive and why so many people use it and talk about it. Because it's ridiculous. It's just another service in a tremendously long and extensive and exhaustive line of services that just are fueled on hate clicks. They just want you to be angry, and they want to end up in your tweets or on, your YouTube video. They want to end up on a Moist Critical YouTube video, or they want to, one of your angry rants. They want to be there. They want to be part of this video, or at least they would if I was to get more views. And that's how they get all of their press. And what annoys me about that is it has fueled an awful, awful community of film criticism. I already think the internet is the worst place for film criticism, but my god, we are in our most hyperbolic stage on the internet thanks to years and years of social media. But now we've reached a stage where, they use that hyperbolic stage that we're in, Rotten Tomatoes do, and they just make it so much worse. It just really exacerbates the issue. We're already hyperbolic enough, and now we're looking at these ridiculous scores and talking about those too. And it just leads to awful conversation. Every conversation has to somehow include how ridiculous it is that this film scored well, or this film didn't score well. And of course that fuels the angry rant rather than actual genuine review that follows. I don't like that. I want to know what a person thought of a film. I don't want to know how angry they are that the Rotten Tomatoes score isn't what they think it is. Wanted it to be. And of course, this is the part where people hate the video and people disagree with what I say and get annoyed, but it of course has very much fueled the worst part of film criticism, which seems to be a very large part of film criticism, which is the part that assumes that if a film that has a female lead or a black lead or something like that has more than like 50%, or maybe just the film that they like with the white guy in the lead, then no, it's somehow a woke agenda. It's the critics. They're all, every single critic, despite the fact that I myself consider myself to be a critic, every single one is a liberal cuck with an agenda. And look at it, Captain Marvel has a half decent score. Oh god, the liberal fucking critics are at it again, and it's. Listen, the reason stuff like that happens is because a lot of the time when there's a film based on empowerment, the film is focused on the empowerment rather than focused on other things that it could be rated negatively for. For example, bad special effects or just poor writing overall. If you're just focused on, hey, let's give this character an empowering role, then you end up with a 6 out of 10 film. 6 out of 10 film is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and so on and so forth. But what's the point? Why am I telling you this? People would just be angry because people enjoy being angry and enjoy the horrible atmosphere that Rotten Tomatoes has created around film criticism. I'm not saying it's completely destroyed it, but it's certainly not helping. And I mean, above all that, I don't, like I said, I don't like the binary 50-100 thing. I think it's more important to know how good a film is. Yes, you can say that you like the film, but what good is that to me? I want to know how good the film is and whether it's worth my time choosing that film over another film. I think it's better. Anyway, I finished with a sip. That is good. And I'll see everyone later.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles.